Welcome into Pro Football Today post-game show. And we got to pick up where the guys so poetically left off. Some disappointment in terms of what the Jets were going to produce. And is Aaron Rodgers' season doomed? How closely do we calculate and judge this? Joe Lisi mentions 7 wins or not. So we got to dive into this and so much more with Tom Vecchio, because we got to see how we can gauge any futures when it comes. We also have to see if the 49ers are the real deal, because that was not a sleepy post-Super Bowl performance for the Niners. And then also, let's take some things head-to-head and see where our quarterbacks slide in terms of their performance. Aaron Rodgers being in for those last couple of drives, Brock Purdy being able to weather a number of pressured storms. I mean, I think we saw some great stuff out of the Niners tonight. And I mean, of course, my card had some disappointments. I think Tom Vecchio probably had the strongest card of the night. Tom, how did you gauge that second half of the game? We saw some action out of Hall, especially when it came to receiving. You walked us through that during halftime. How'd that wrap up of the 32-19 pounding by the Niners work out for you?
This game was awesome, at least from my perspective. Hit on a number of different things I spoke about. The Mason touchdown prop, which, I tweeted out 2 days ago to use a boost on him to get him up to plus 980, which is awesome. The Debo touchdown, the Debo over rushing plus receiving. So all of that was great. Aaron Rodgers under on passing attempts. All in all, this game went basically exactly how I anticipated it. Even if CMC did play, I expected the other players to be involved at a high rate. And if we just look at Jordan Mason's production, if we transfer some of that over to what CMC could have done, Debo being involved was exactly what I said was going to happen this morning on the early line with Ben and Donnie before we even had the CMC news. He was going to be in the backfield. He was going to be involved in the passing game. We have a ton to get to, but it was a great game.
Yes, and like I said, an even better game for you. You gauged some things very well, and I would say there was some disappointment and some slow movement by the Jets on not only their offense, but on their defense, a defense that was anticipated to come in a little stronger. Looks like they got a little fatigued there, but they spent way too much time on the field. If you look at the time between the offenses, if you look at how many more offensive plays the Niners happen to have, just a lot to unpack, as Tom said. So don't go anywhere. We just got the Pro Football postgame started, so join us on the other side.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship.
The golf has been mesmerizing.
They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio. We were just breaking down what we saw not only in that second half of the victory for the 49ers, but kind of throughout the entire game. Tom had some huge plays that came in strong, but a number of things that we saw is the fact that the Jets weren't able to produce on both sides of the ball. It looked like the defense kind of fatigued out there, but you can't blame them entirely because when you look at not only the plays, but how much time the 49ers just had to completely control this game. In terms of possession, 38 minutes and 40 seconds in comparison to the Jets' 21 minutes and 20 seconds. Mind you, a chunk, maybe 3-4 of those minutes came as the fourth quarter was winding through. Something that the 49ers do very something that Kyle Shanahan does very well, whether you love him or hate him, is that clock management. I mean, there was a number of plays where they could have easily probably opened up the field, aired out the ball, but they decided to run the ball because they didn't particularly need the yardage. They needed that clock to be in favor of what they were doing. And that's why they're such a balanced attack team sometimes. But, Tom, outside of your outstanding plays of the day, I do want to get your opinion on something. The guys were talking about it. Kevin mentioned it, but we saw the 49ers have an aggressive ground game without Christian McCaffrey. We saw versatility out of a number of guys. We saw guys that could probably come in strong with rush and receiving props down the line here. So, how do you think this changes things, maybe even value when it comes to Christian McCaffrey over the next couple of weeks?
Well, the first thing we'd want to get is an update on his health. Will he be playing? Will they ease him back in? He may play in week 2, but they'll say, oh, he's on a limited snap count. He's going to see a decreased workload, something along those lines. That is a key piece of information that we need. And I would say we could operate that game, or hypothetically that game, something along the lines of what we saw tonight, where it's going to be Mason, it's going to be Deebo Samuel. That's what we could work with going forward. Probably a steady use in the passing game for not necessarily McCaffrey, but the other players that we saw involved tonight. As you mentioned, time possession, as I said last night, one thing that I always want to make sure with recaps is we always get something actionable from this. So teams facing the 49ers, if we know that's the Shanahan calling card, they're going to destroy the clock. They're going to sap away the time off the clock, and that limits the opposing team's ability to run plays. So that is the key is opposing quarterbacks under on passing attempts, because if they literally just don't have the ball for that amount of time, a quarterback's not going to be flying to 35 or 40 passing attempts. Even if it was Aaron Rodgers tonight, a quarterback I expected to start slow. But in general, if the 49ers are running the ball, the opposing team is not going to be piling up all these yards. They're just not going to have a chance to run as many plays. So we can look forward to Mason and Samuel being consistent options if CMC is limited in some capacity, and we just trust the 49ers defense to do their thing week in and week out.
Yeah. And plus, we'll touch back on the injuries because we will kind of recycle back to all the action that took place this weekend. But there was some disappointment for me, at least when it came to Tyler Conkel and the Jets not being able to use all of their viable options, in my opinion. And it was great because you saw Joey C screaming for some action for Tyler Conkel, but I was hoping for it because he had a 70% target rate with inside the 15-yard line all last season long. And plus, he's a tight end that came in over 600 receiving yards. Also, I mean, he was looked at for a minimum of 5 receptions in most games and 35-plus yards. So I thought that he was going to get involved. So it just kind of seemed like the game plan for the Jets was pretty disconnected, that they were going to try to consistently try to hammer something that was or was not working. Some action came to life for Rodgers and Lazard, but you're not surprised there. These guys have chemistry, and they've previously worked together in tight games. So you say a great point. It's kind of the script when it comes to the 49ers, especially Shanahan. You talked about how to kind of gauge McCaffrey moving forward, but we had a number of injuries that are going to impact some rosters throughout the season, starting with a game that you and I were on last night, Tom. We were watching and covering and doing bets for the Rams versus the Lions game. We know that Puka Nacua ended up going down as questionable, then being reversed to out, knee injury, and then he was placed on IR, minimum of 4 games out. How do you adjust from this point?
We can actually look back to last year to somewhat of a decent sample size. Puka Nacua played every game, nearly every snap. And that's ultimately what we want to look at is the time that he played, or the time that he was active, not playing on the field, if that makes sense. When he wasn't out there for snaps. We're going to see a massive, massive workload for Cooper Kupp as we saw last night. We're talking about 10, 12, 14 targets on a nightly basis. I would assume his reception prop is at a minimum going to be 7.5 or 8.5 receptions. It's going to be pushing the upper 80s when it comes to yards, if not low 90s. The question is, where do we go outside of there? Because ultimately, I don't have a whole lot of interest in betting those Cooper Kupp lines because they're going to be so heavily bet that the lines are going to be moved up and up and up. So what I generally look to, and this is something that Ben and Donnie will tell you after years of being on their shows, is I always look to some of the secondary and tertiary options on offenses because I believe those lines are not as refined. And we're going to find lines that are sitting at 22.5, 26.5, and those players are going to be playing a big role because Matt Stafford's going to have 40 passing attempts, and all of them are not going to be going to Cooper Kupp. So looking to someone like Robinson or Tyler Johnson, who we saw last night, or Colby Parkinson, their new tight end, that is where we're going to find the actual value when it comes to the Rams, because Cooper Kupp is just a consistent. We know what we're getting from him, but that doesn't mean it's the best spot to be betting. We want to look to some of those secondary options to actually find the viable lines.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, especially because in certain moments, actually a huge chunk of the first half of last night's game, we saw Kupp, in a different couple of roles. I remember at one point kind of being frustrated that he was going out and blocking and trying to open lanes for his teammates, which was great, but that does take away the value of him receiving, and then they needed him towards the end of the game there. Mind you, the Rams are going to get ready to take on the Cardinals this coming weekend at 4:05 p.m. And look, the Cardinals were able to get picked apart a little bit by the Bills receivers, but a versatile amount of them. It wasn't just one receiver having himself a day. It was about 3 or 4 of them. So what Tom gives you advice-wise to gauge there, I would definitely look into that. Tyler Johnson is a guy who has experience playing against the Cardinals. He has experience with those deep balls. We saw some good things out of him the other day, so also another wide receiver to kind of help with that workload. I wouldn't underestimate what the Cardinals can do because we saw an interesting first half between the Cardinals and the Bills, but I'm guessing you would probably agree on how they can pick them apart in the pass attack there. But we've got more games to get to. We've got more injuries, unfortunately, because that's a lot of what takes place in Week 1, so don't go anywhere. Tom and I are going to continue to run you through the post-game show for pro football today. We're going to touch back on what we just witnessed between the Niners and the Jets. We're going to get ready to look ahead as we wrap up the post-game show as well. So hang tight with myself and Tom Vecchio because we've got you covered on all of the NFL action on the other side of this break.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship.
The golf has been mesmerizing.
They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go!
That's what champions do.
Back at it with Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio. We're running down the slate of the weekend games. We just recapped the Jets taking on the 49ers, or I should say falling short to the 49ers. And with the number of injuries that are taking place, we got to figure out how to gauge the market with the upcoming week 2 in the NFL. We were just breaking down the Rams being without Puka Nacua for at minimum of 4 weeks, but we know how injuries can pan out. He is on IR. But another injury that came in and kind of shook up a fan base was Jordan Love versus the Eagles down in Brazil. It looks like it's going to be Malik Willis to take the helm of this one, but now they have a big task ahead going against the Colts team that put up a fun game, a big fight versus the Texans. What do you see in this one?
This one would be an immediate downgrade to the Packers' young and exciting receiving core, and this is a Josh Jacobs game. We saw what Joe Mixon just did to the Colts for 30-plus carries, 100-plus yards. So we have a backup quarterback in there who has not shown the ability to push the ball downfield when he's with the Titans. We have a running back who they just paid, and now we have a defense that got absolutely abused, essentially, last week by Joe Mixon, putting up massive carries. So this is a Josh Jacobs week for the Packers. It is a Josh Jacobs week when it comes to props. Obviously, it's determined on what those props and those lines are. I just don't want to blatantly say take every Josh Jacobs prop. It depends on what the actual lines are. But it is a run-first mentality from the Packers, and it is a downgrade to all of their receivers. So, yes, Reed had a great game one, and Christian Watson caught a touchdown, and we saw some good stuff from Romeo Doubs, but it is not going to be a heavy passing option or options in player props when it comes to the Packers. On the other side, for the Colts, I say we just continue to roll with Anthony Richardson, combined rushing plus passing. He had a good game. I'm going to still say he left some yards on the field with a few inconsistencies and inaccuracies with those deep balls, but he will reel that under control, and he will be a dynamic threat week in and week out.
And maybe just because I didn't particularly cash in on it today, but maybe, just maybe, fans, gauge an interception prop for Malik Willis, because even though there was some hard coverage to go against the Texans this past weekend, you're looking at them going against a team that if they do get brazen enough to try to air out the ball a bit, you've got Christian Watson, whom I love so much, but separation is not his friend. Doubs is probably one of the top guys that can get the job done in that category, but if he does try to go to one of his young receivers, we could see some foreseeable mistakes. You got Julian Blackmon in the backfield, Nick Cross, EJ Speed. You got a number of guys on this Colts roster that can be disruptive, so it could be a bit of a destructive game. It could be a neck-and-neck game. We will not know until it's game time, but Anthony Richardson is probably the way to go. Richardson had himself quite a debut coming back from his injury. Speaking of another guy that's kind of been shaken up a little bit, Browns are down one of their tight ends. I feel like we saw some inconsistency in health last year, and then now he's going to be out. Did you see how long he's going to be out for? Did they mention it? Because we know that there's been cross reports.
David Njoku for the Browns?
Yes.
That I did not see a final update on.
Okay. I think that it's at least going to be a minimum of 2 games. They mentioned that he's probably more than likely not coming up this week, but they're taking on a Jaguars team that's going to look to bounce back after giving up a potential victory to the Dolphins this past Sunday. Any great plays to gauge for this one?
Well, for the Browns, if we're going to continue to see Deshaun Watson out there, it's going to be the under on his yards and his attempts and his completions, and the over on his interceptions prop, because he looks absolutely horrible. It's going to be continuing to look to Jerome Ford for any level of consistency, under on Jerry Jeudy. And the Jacksonville side of things is far more interesting, considering, well, yes, a bit of a collapse in the second half against the Dolphins, but we saw some good things out of the backfield with Tank Bigsby. We saw some good stuff in their receiving core. I'm expecting big things from that receiving core. It just, again, it comes down to who's it going to be on a week-to-week basis. We know what they can bring with Kirk and Evan Ingram and Brian Thomas, et cetera, et cetera. So they have a lot of options. It's going to come down to finding the best lines available, which we just have to wait and see what they are, because I do expect them to bounce back and win that game.
Yeah, and then I do have one question, because at least regardless of what's been going on with the Browns offense, they've got some credibility on their defense. We were expecting at least a bigger performance by their defense. Is this a game where we can see them kind of come back to life and be a reputable defense, or no? We've got 30 seconds.
Probably. So maybe Myles Garrett sack props. I haven't looked into those in a while, but maybe that's the play to go. Maybe the under on the game as an initial takeaway, but we have to get deeper into the week once we get some more refined lines out there.
Yes, so don't go anywhere because we've got to continue to unpack this game and so many more, not to mention the look ahead. So you're going to want to hang out with us here on Pro Football Today post-game show. We've got a quick break right here, so stick with us here on SportsGrid TV.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship.
The golf has been mesmerizing.
They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio, running through the weekend slate, preparing you for Week 2 in the NFL. We talked about some of the major injuries that took place around the league and how that might impact things moving forward, but we also have to talk about some of those performances that fell so short and below the standard, and one of those teams being the Bengals. Everybody before the season kicked off said if Joe Burrow is healthy, he is a force to be reckoned with. It's his year, all these things. Was I partially on some of these trains? I was. And then we see him throw for 164 passing yards. Zach Moss not getting anything going. Jamar Chase probably being the key asset to that team, not losing worse than 16-10 to the Patriots. But Tom, you tell me, how do you move forward from this? Like, we don't overreact in Week 1, but we try to be smart moving forward. What's the smart move?
The smart move for the Bengals, I would have to double check quickly. It's like, what are the Ravens' odds to win the division? Because it's sitting at plus 120 for the Ravens to win the division. So the Bengals are going on the road to take on the Chiefs, which is never an easy thing to do. If T. Higgins continues to be out and maybe Chase is on a full snap count now after he gets a full week of practice in, the Bengals could be looking at 0-2. And looking at 0-2 when the Ravens are in a winnable spot at home, they're 9.5-point favorites against the Raiders. This is a spot where the Ravens will now jump ahead, and all of a sudden the Ravens are going to constantly be that game ahead and put themselves in a spot to win a division. So I think the Bengals will be fine and have a chance to compete for the wild card, but 0-2 is obviously a tough spot to bounce back and still have 2 games to play against the Ravens, and then they still have to play the Steelers twice. So as of now, I think it's cautiously optimistic if you have a Ravens division ticket, I guess, is like the best spot to look forward to.
Yeah, because even though that game was kind of rough to watch in some ways, we did see some good things out of the Ravens, but there were some cues as in a little too late for them to start pulling out some of those stops, and then there's just the mere fact that the Chiefs were better in every aspect between the calls that were being played and Xavier Worthy having himself a day and Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes. But I do like the gauge value for the Ravens to kind of make some moves there. Kind of pivoting over when we talk about NFC. Who could sit atop of the NFC? I made some comments on social media about everybody who thought the Falcons were going to be the best of the best in the NFC South, and I get it. Nobody takes the NFC South that seriously, but the Bucs showed a lot of snarl this weekend, and I'm not just saying that as a hometown girl. Baker Mayfield coming up with 4 tutties and a massive performance. Mike Evans showing why he's one of the best wide receivers in the league. Chris Godwin hitting major props for everybody. But you got a Lions team that put on a pretty solid performance last night, too. So what can we kind of look forward to between these two teams? I will say a devastating loss for the Bucs as Antoine Winfield Jr. seems like he'll be out for the rest of the season. One of my favorite guys on the roster, and a huge loss for the Bucs defense.
I would say that top tier of teams is they're kind of just going to be jockeying for position, jumping each other throughout the majority of the year. We know it's going to be the 49ers as a favorite. It's going to be the Eagles. It's going to be the Lions, and then the Cowboys at 4. And whether they flip-flop, Eagles drop to 3, they drop to 4. The loss here, the Lions are super hot. I think it's going to essentially be the same throughout the majority of the season. If you have been on the Falcons from the start of the year or since the summer, I would say stick with them. There's no need to double down on the position that you're already at. They can win that division. I think the Bucs are the most interesting to win that division. If you don't already have a position, getting a little bit over 2-1, I think that's fine. When it comes to moving forward to the NFC, generally my favorite spot to go is as the season develops. I like trying to find markets that are the direct outcomes, which is for the NFC, the 49ers beat the Lions or the Lions beat the 49ers, whatever your favorite combination is, because that brings the most value. You're going to get that at 5-1, 6-1. So instead of picking an outright winner, picking just the outright winner, I actually like going for the direct matchup because that brings the most value. So yes, it's a bit of a longer shot, but if I believe these two teams are the best of the best in a given division or conference, whatever it might be, that's where I ultimately like to look.
I actually really like that. Not to mention is that it gives everybody a little bit of hope without completely dismissing my team. So thank you for the softness on that one, Tom. But when we're looking at this head-to-head matchup between the Bucs and the Lions, something the Lions obviously are formidable with is their ground game. You saw Mac Montgomery get some massive yardage last night. Now you have the Bucs that have some fractures in their defense from top to bottom. So is there anything that becomes more flattering or appealing?
For plenty of scoring and a big bounce back game from Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I'm sure so many fans want to see a lot more out of St. Brown because I just remember hearing and seeing across Twitter, get him more involved, throw him the ball more. But we say that about a number of players. But speaking of progressive play, you've got Caleb Williams, who seemed to struggle a little bit versus the Texans team that came out, or not Texans team, excuse me, Titans team that came out much stronger than anticipated. I mentioned yesterday I felt like there were some snap issues and kind of some confusion at the line of scrimmage. But regardless, they're going against a Texans team that's living up to the hype and the excitement. Two quarterbacks that should really kind of pick up some yards in the air. But what's the fun part about this matchup?
This matchup, if we can get Caleb Williams and he starts throwing the ball more, it's going to have to be a big DJ Moore game, no pun intended. But the news today was that Rome Odunze is dealing with a knee issue. He has an MRI. He's listed as week to week, whatever it's going to be. So obviously an exciting young rookie for them. If he's not going to be good to go, it's going to be down to Moore and Keenan Allen to step up because ultimately we know that Houston has the better offense. So if they're out in front, the Bears are going to be forced into this passing game trip, and Caleb Williams is simply going to have to do more than he did in week 1. And again, as I said last night, one game doesn't define a player, but seeing sub 100 yards from Caleb Williams is obviously not a great start. If we see that again or see sub 150 yards from him, that's start to be a concerning sign when we have great options around him. So Moore and Allen are the initial looks that I have right now, and it's just going to be, I want to say, an onslaught from the Texans in the passing game as usual. Stroud going for 250 plus, a couple of touchdowns, all their receivers getting involved, and Joe Mixon doing his thing yet again.
Yeah, and you've pointed it out a couple of times here at SportsGrid and over your NFL coverage in the past week and a half. I can't believe we're a week and a half in already, but when you have offenses that have a lot of versatility and weapons and options to go to, you've kind of leaned towards maybe advising fans to look at attempts or to look at receptions or anything like that. You have Tank Dell that had 2 carries for 19 rushing yards, but then 3 receptions for 40 yards. Nico Collins with obviously the biggest day for the Texans, 6 receptions, 117 yards. Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions for 33 yards. Could there be anything attractive in terms of receptions if they're sitting around 3.5 for these guys?
It would probably be receptions for Nico Collins. It would probably be a touchdown for Tank Dell. He had some good stuff. I would have to dig into their red zone usage, which is generally what I do on Tuesdays and Wednesdays leading into the following week. So Tank Dell touchdown and Collins over on yards would be my first assumption right now.
Yeah, I could agree with that one. I'm not going to go against and disrespect Caleb Williams and his defense because the young guys can bring the hype, but we will see. We've got a couple more games to run through and to double check any injury reports for over the weekend. If you missed it, Niners took the victory tonight, but we're going to keep rolling here with the Pro Football Today post-game show on SportsGrid TV. So stick with us. Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio bringing you more coverage on the other side of this quick break.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship.
The golf has been mesmerizing.
They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio here on SportsGrid TV, and rolling through the upcoming slate, keeping you guys up to date on any sort of injuries. And I'm very curious, Tom. Are the Saints defense going to come marching in to Cowboys territory and be, I get it, they played against the Panthers, but are they going to be clearly as close, as dominant, as formidable as they had a chance to be versus the Panthers? And plus, they were pretty decent last year as well. I feel like the Cowboys can maybe get shaken up a little bit this weekend, or at least that's what the Saints are hoping for. What do you see?
Yeah, I would halfway agree. I think the Saints have a good defense, but I also think they overperform given the matchup against the Panthers. I think both things can be true. Initial lean for this game would be on the under. 6.5 points is pretty spot on. I think the 6.5 line is indicating, yes, the Cowboys are a better team. The Saints had this great performance, but we have to take that performance into with a big grain of salt given the fact that they played the Panthers. So initial lean would be on the under on this one. You're probably taking some longer shots on some touchdowns, probably with Rico Dowell. They want to continue to get him involved. Not going to be giving Zeke Elliott as big workload. Ultimately, they shouldn't be giving Zeke any workload. It should be all Rico Dowell. But that's not here nor there. With Jake Ferguson dealing with this lower body injury, there's a chance he could play this week, but I would still look outside of him for a not him for a touchdown. Luke Schoonemaker, I believe, is the backup tight end. That's who I'd go to for a bit of a long shot.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully get some information on Ferguson once we get back here for Thursday Night Football. But I will mention this. You make a great point to be a little resistant in terms of what the Saints are going to produce on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, to put up 47 points, you got Carr that only came up with roughly 200 passing yards. Yes, he had the 3 passing touchdowns, but I mean, still, it just kind of tells you how fluid some of the plays may or may not have panned out. So something to keep in mind when you're going against a Cowboys team that can pull off a couple different disguises in their defense. Whether you love this team or hate this team this season, they can get a little crazy when it comes to the defense in the best way possible. Now, one of the next games to look forward to, this is going to be an interesting one because we saw hope in the first quarter for the Jets, and then we just saw things kind of fall apart, and then obviously Rodgers not playing those last couple of snaps, but Titans were a fun game or fun squad to watch. They do have some talent over there. They can probably be a little more disruptive than anticipated. And then you've got some people that are already dropping the win total for the Jets lower and lower per play after this Monday Night Football game wrapped up. So I feel like we could be in for a little bit of a crazy matchup between the Jets and the Titans. Do you see anything of value in this one?
I mean, ultimately, I think the under is the route to go. And when it comes to the Titans offense, with DeAndre Hopkins dealing with this MCL thing, I'm pretty sure he didn't record any stats on Sunday against the Bears. They'll leave Calvin Ridley as number 1. If Sauce Gardner, who left the game against the 49ers, was out on the sideline, came back in, once we get an update on Sauce Gardner, that would have me interested in Calvin Ridley if DeAndre Hopkins is not fully ready to go. So that's my initial lean right now. I would maybe look to, again, a Breece Hall combined rushing plus receiving. He's their best offensive player, and he can involve in any type of game script. So it would be him 1, Garrett Wilson 2. On the other side, it would be Calvin Ridley, and then hopefully they continue to get Tajay Spears involved a little more even with Tony Pollard.
Yes, and then Pollard is probably where I was leaning just because, I don't want to say surprisingly because we do know how strong the 49ers team was, but I expected the Jets defense to be coming up a bit stronger and stopping the run. You have Mason who had himself a heyday out there, and you've got Pollard who's coming off of 82 rushing yard performance through 16 carries, so could be something of value there, at least maybe in terms of how many carries he could progressively get versus the Jets. There was a guy, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but we did see him kind of get shaken up with a bit of a groin irritation. So there was a number of guys on the Jets defense that just kind of got slightly banged up. So hopefully nothing too intense or serious that carries over into the week 2 matchups. Pivoting from the Jets and the Titans and then talking about the Falcons and the Eagles. The Monday Night Football matchup before we get into one of the more exciting matchups of Week 2 in the NFL. And we got to talk about this for a number of reasons because now there's some doubt around the Falcons offense. There's some doubt around the connections between Cousins and his weapons. But then also they added some plugs to their defense. And while they kind of showed up, it wasn't to the extent in which they were expected to. So can this be a steamroll for the Eagles who are going to be coming off of a high from their performance regardless of their slow start?
No, I think we're in for a close game. We have awesome offensive options on both sides. And, regardless of what people say about Kirk Cousins in prime time, whatever it might be, I still think that the offense has immense potential given the variety of ways that they can move the ball downfield, whether it's with Robinson, Kyle Pitts who had a touchdown, obviously Drake London, getting Mooney involved. I think we are in for probably the game of the week, which is great that we're saving it for Monday night, which we will be back here doing next Monday. So that's a great game as of now. I think the points with the Eagles is a bit much, so I'm slightly interested in the Falcons, but it's going to come down pretty heavily to player props, especially potential for Drake London, because the Eagles got gashed by Reed in Brazil on Friday night, the game that we did. He went awesome, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. So if that's the potential that their defense is lacking, that is immense upside for Drake London next Monday night.
Yeah, and I wouldn't completely buy into some of the frustration from the Falcons' performance this past weekend, because another thing to keep in mind is that the Eagles were down in Brazil. There was some weather conditions. They were playing on a soccer field. It just seemed like there was a lack of preparation in terms of managing that. So why not see what Robinson can produce versus the Eagles, even though they do have quite a solid defense as well. Also, you can use Robinson not only just for rush yards, but for receiving yards. And then I'm not going to take away from their defensive performance, because Matthew Judon did come in with half a sack. That's what he got paid to do. He can convert that into a full sack against teams that he has a lot of experience against as well. So it's hard for me to say that for a team competing in the NFC South, but it's true. You got to call it what it is. The Falcons might have a standing chance, and at least we'll see how well the Eagles can be consistent in what they're bringing to the table. I mean, they've got such a 1-2 punch on their offense, but we're not 100% on what's going to pan out until we get there. As Tom mentioned, we will have that coverage for you here on SportsGrid TV with Pro Football Today. And as for the post-game show that we are rolling through, you're going to want to stick with us on the other side of this quick break, because we've got about 2 more games, at least one very exciting game that we got to get Tom's breakdown, opinion, and advice on. So go nowhere. Stay with us here on SportsGrid TV.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship.
The golf has been mesmerizing.
They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio. We got one more round to rally with you guys, and I feel like we kind of saved the best for last time. We got to talk about Thursday Night Football, but as you all know, Tom, myself, as well as a lot of the other crew will be back with you on Thursday night to give you that full coverage, another exciting pregame party show, a pregame parlay, and a lot of other fun stuff in store. But before we get ahead of ourselves and get to Thursday and all of that excitement, let's break down what we are expecting to see. We got the Bills taking on the Dolphins, in division, and all the excitement that comes with that. We've got a Dolphins team that rallied back this weekend. We've got a Bills team that rallied back this weekend. And we've got a Dolphins team that wants to prove that they should be sitting atop of this one. So where's the fun with this, Tom?
Immediately, I'm leaning Bills. Anytime we get two teams, that's essentially a coin flip. I mean, it's minus 120 for the Dolphins money lines, plus 102 for the Bills. Like, we're dealing with a coin flip between two very good teams. Like, I generally will side with just taking the points of a team that can realistically win this game. 48.5 over under seems pretty spot on. As usual, I will ultimately look to take a live over. I think 48.5 is just not something I'm comfortable with taking the over. But again, if these things start slow, it is a Thursday. It's a short week for both these teams, and we generally see these games start slow. A lack of offense. If we can get a live over at 40, 41.5, maybe 42, that's probably my favorite spot to go. It's about the quarterbacks. It's about the receivers in this game. We know what we have from the Dolphins. The question is, what do we get from the Bills' passing offense? Is it going to be consistently Keon Coleman? Is it going to be Khalil Shakir? Are we actually going to see something from Dalton Kincaid? Or is it always going to be Josh Allen running the ball in the red zone and James Cook running the ball? Because we need some consistency out of the passing game from the Bills to match what we know the Dolphins can bring early and often in the passing game.
Yeah, I think that's always the big question mark, because outside of probably liking some props of combined rushing yards and passing yards, or rushing yards specifically for Josh Allen, we don't know what to expect sometimes when it comes to their pass attack. Look, he got out with a clean slate without throwing an interception, but that doesn't mean that the Bills game didn't come without a few costly turnovers that made this game a bit closer than it needed to be in that first half. But when you're looking at the matchup here, you've got Jalen Ramsey, who could be back in rare form, got his payday, had a bit of an impact in this previous game. So do you think that can kind of hinder how he distributes the ball between Coleman and Cook and Hollis and Knox and Scantling and all these weapons that he did have or didn't feel like he had?
I mean, maybe that just leans more towards Dalton Kincaid in the middle of the field and James Cook with low A-dot catches coming out of the backfield. So Kincaid, who did basically nothing, I'm not sure if he had any receptions against the Cardinals, but Kincaid in the middle of the field for over on yards, and James Cook probably just continued to go to him, I think, week in and week out, looking for combined rushing plus receiving, because if they have the lead, he's going to be the primary runner, and if they are going to be passing the ball and the pressure gets to Josh Allen, he's just going to be dumping the ball to these easy checkdowns to James Cook.
Is the Bills secondary enough to contend with what the Dolphins are going to be bringing to the game? Because you've got Tua, who slung for 338 passing yards. You've got Tyreek Hill, who's now going to have a bigger chip on his shoulder. Waddle, who doesn't want to see that in the end zone. But you laughed the minute that I asked about the secondary. What's your thought?
I don't know if there's any secondary that can contain Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it's just a matter of, again, finding like the best lines and the best props, because Tyreek Hill's line is going to be 90 whatever for yards. And he can hit the over on it, but doesn't mean that's like the best line to be betting. Jalen Waddle's is going to be a little bit lower, probably in the mid 70s or so. That might be a more favorable spot to go. Jalen Waddle getting a touchdown, which he didn't have in week one, is probably going to be one of my favorite bets of the game.
And I would probably look at the carry prop for Wilson Jr. I mean, he got 5 carries. That's probably might come in around 3.5. But, guys, we had the pregame party with you. Tom and I hung out for halftime with you all. We brought you the postgame show. Tom gave you angles and some things to start looking at as we get locked in for week 2 in the NFL. But we're not done with y'all yet. We're going to be here all season long on SportsGrid TV. My card didn't pan out so well, but Tom had himself a day for the most part. What'd you fall? Well, maybe 1 or 2, but Adam actually ended up having a pretty big card too, except for the under. So to continue the fun, the coverage, and the analytics and best bets, you want to make sure you're getting all of your coverage here on the grid. Follow over on Twitter, X, Instagram, anywhere that you can get your hands on social media. Make sure you are following Tom on all social media platforms, myself at The Sports Case, because we're going to let you guys know what our betting cards look like and what days that we'll be on. But like I said, you can find us right here on Pro Football Today for the entire NFL season. We'll catch you guys back here for Thursday Night Football. Bills taking on the Dolphins, another pregame party, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. Stick with us here on SportsGrid TV.